You may have recently heard the name Laura Loomer. You're thinking, where did I hear that name? Well, here's a headline. New York Post, June 16th, 2017. Blogger booed off stage after rushing Julius Caesar. Now notice this description from the New York Post. Laura Loomer, who works for the alt-right website The Rebel. So notice it's called alt-right, which would then make it anti-Semitic and even have Nazi undertones. That's how it's being framed. Laura Loomer, who works for the alt-right website The Rebel, ran onto the stage during the performance and was promptly dragged away and booed by the crowd. This, as you know, the infamous play in New York City, which basically depicted every night the assassination of Donald Trump. Not actually him, but an actor that was resembling and representing him to the delight of the crowd. And Laura Loomer, interestingly, as a conservative Jewish woman, took issue with that. In a moment, we'll let you hear the actual clip where Laura did this. But Laura, welcome to The Line of Fire. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Laura, could you just give us a little hint of your background? You're a young woman in your mid-20s. To do something like this takes a lot of guts, and you know it's going to bring a lot of backlash. How does this woman, Laura Loomer, get to do something like that? Give us a little bit of your history.
Well, I grew up in Arizona. I'm 24 years old, and I went to school in Florida. I studied political science and journalism, and I got started in journalism working for Project Veritas. So for about 3 years, I was working with James O'Keefe, and, over the past 3 years, I just was carrying out various operations, various undercover missions, and, this desire to make a difference and create impact just grew on me. And I recently left Project Veritas to join the Rebel. And, within probably less than 2 weeks of being there, I just decided that something needed to be done about, the normalization of political violence against the right and its sponsorship by the left-wing mainstream media.
All right. So this was a conviction in your heart to stand up and do something. Why do that? It's just a lot easier to let people do what they do and live your life and not be involved in controversy. When you know you're going to get this kind of backlash, why are these convictions so strong in you?
Well, look, people talk about making a difference, but and wanting to change policies, but a lot of people aren't willing to do what's necessary to make it happen. And no one is going to like you. Not everybody in this world is going to like you, no matter what you do. Someone once told me you could be the juiciest peach in the world, but there's always going to be somebody who hates peaches, right? So, yeah. It's just part of the job. That's what happens.
Well, listen, I commend you for it. I understand it, relate to it. So many just sit by idly and complain. But here, let's just talk about this one thing and then the anti-Semitic related charges and your relationship with the ADL and these accusations of alt-right. So if you've got this queued up, let's just listen to what happened at this play in New York City.
Freedom. Stop the normalization of political violence against the right. This is unacceptable. You cannot.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pause. We're going to pause. Security.
This is violence.
Security, please.
Laura, what do you think would have happened to you if there had been a play in New York City, which, God forbid, was depicting the assassination of Barack Obama every night, aside from the fact it never would have gone on, never would have happened, and you got up to protest it? What do you think the media would have said about you?
I mean, they would have glorified me, right? They would have put me on a pedestal and worshipped me and, called me a symbol of hope and change. But look, we've seen this mentality in the mainstream media, one in which they try to completely demoralize Donald Trump and his supporters and, just completely invalidate their legitimacy. So, it's obvious why the media reacted the way they did. I think one of the only, probably if not the only, positive response I received from any mainstream media, reporters, journalists was Sean Hannity. He's the only one who really commended me for what I did. But if you look at the breakdown of the play, they received something like $30 to $33 million of New York City taxpayer dollars, along with big sponsorships from the New York Times, Time Warner, and CNN. So why would these big time liberal mainstream media outlets want to condemn something that they're supporting?
So the hypocrisy is extraordinary. Hatred like this on either side is unacceptable. Acts of simulated violence like this against leaders on either side are unacceptable. If there had been a play like this, and again, President Obama, God forbid, was the target of it, and let's just say Fox News helped underwrite it, and the Washington Times, conservative newspaper, helped underwrite it, they'd be blasted from pillar to post. They'd be instantly boycotted. Yet New York Times didn't skip a beat, and others that endorsed the play had hardly skipped a beat. It's extraordinary hypocrisy. And right now you're caught in the crosshairs of this, Laura, in particular because you are also a young Jewish woman, and young Jewish women, by definition in America, unless you're ultra-Orthodox religious, you are expected to be liberal. So this really isolates you further, doesn't it?
Yeah, and, I've received hatred from both the left and the right for being Jewish. So it's not like, it's one side and I can, run to one side of the aisle for, solidarity and, quote-unquote protection, because I'm kind of in the middle, where I have people on both sides of the aisle just trying to attack me, and not only just attacking me for their disagreement in my tactics, but just disagreeing with me simply because I'm Jewish.
Has it gotten that far? In other words, if someone looks at your Twitter feed, you've got a healthy following on Twitter, will they see attacks on you just because you're Jewish?
Yeah, definitely.
And has it gone beyond just rhetoric on Twitter or getting blasted by the media? Has there been anything that's physical or tangible that's happened beyond that?
For what, being Jewish or just being attacked in general?
Being who you are, has there been further backlash which has actually come in the way of a physical threat or something bodily that's happened?
Yeah, I've received threats. People will call my phone really late at night. Just last night, I probably received about 15 calls in a row from unknown numbers. And people will leave me anti-Semitic voicemails. People will send me nasty text messages. If I answer the phone, they'll scream, derogatory terms about Jewish people. And it honestly got so bad that I had to file a police report recently, because it wasn't just so much the attacks on me for being Jewish. It was the attacks on me in general and people threatening to harm me and kill me. And I've been receiving death threats. People have called me, some of them simply attacking me because I'm Jewish, others because I'm a conservative. And look, I don't know who's making these phone calls, right? I mean, I know a couple of them who they're coming from, but I'm not going to say that all of the hatred is coming from one specific group or one specific side of the aisle, because there's many people both on the left and the right who have attacked me simply for being Jewish and just simply because I'm a female Trump supporter.
And so, again, the more you narrow down who you are, the less and less commonality you have with others of your age and background, etc. What about the tires of your car? Did they suffer recently?
Yeah. And so yesterday, my tire was slashed, one tire. And, instantly people were just taking to Twitter to condemn me and call me a liar, say that I wanted to raise shekels, trying to discredit me and the threats that I've been receiving. And I know that people are going to do this. So this is why I've been keeping a track record of everything, because I know that people are going to try and discredit me. And honestly, for anybody who's receiving threats like this, I, would encourage them to make a police report and document it, because God forbid something does actually happen to me. At least there will be a record that, yeah, I received death threats, at 2:00 in the morning. Yeah, somebody slashed my tire. And I keep receiving hateful phone calls and voicemails. So, I filed a police report. My car is actually getting fixed right now. And the police documented that my tire was slashed. AAA documented that my tire was slashed. And the 4 mechanics who were in the shop all saw my car. And before I even opened my mouth and told them what happened, one of them goes, "Wow, who did you piss off?" Because it was so obvious that my tire had been slashed upon seeing it.
All right, friends, we come back. I want to add one more element to the story here that makes it all the more shocking. We're going to talk about the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. This is the Jewish-run Anti-Defamation League that focuses on the defamation of Jewish people. We'll be right back. I'm speaking with Laura Loomer. You can watch her videos at Rebel Media on YouTube. Laura is a conservative activist, and she is Jewish and a supporter of Trump, so you don't get that all together in many cases. And friends listening, whether you love President Trump or hate President Trump or you're somewhere in between, I think you agree that everyone should have the right to their beliefs and no one should encourage violence and hatred against those with whom they differ. You might say, well, thank God for the ADL, Anti-Defamation League. Thank God they exist, because when a Jew like Laura is getting publicly defamed and attacked, just go to her Twitter feed and see, simply because she is Jewish, thank God there is such a thing as the ADL. Well, Laura has not found a friend and a sympathizer with the Anti-Defamation League. Listen to what happened with her. This is Laura speaking from the ADL building.
Apparently, if you are a conservative Jew and you come to the ADL and you come to report hatred and defamation and cyberbullying of conservatives, you are not welcome here at the ADL. They claim to be one of the leading organizations that protects people against defamation, against cyberbullying, against attacks, and anti-Semitism, but they won't even let an American Jew, a Jewish conservative American woman, go upstairs and have a conversation with them about the defamation and this hatred that they're spewing against conservatives. They're willing to call out and target conservatives, but I haven't seen one list in which they identify American Muslim leaders who preach anti-Semitism and claim that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, yet they're defaming conservatives and creating a list of undesirables. It sounds like they don't really defend all Jews. It sounds like they don't really have the interests of all Jews, only democratic Jews.
All right, Laura, what you're saying is that the ADL is there to stand up for liberal Jewish causes and liberal Jews, but not conservative Jews. And in fact, they put out a list from alt-right to alt-lite naming the hate, where one of your colleagues is on there as well, as if he's a Nazi sympathizer or a Jew hater or something like that. What's going on? Where's this double standard coming from?
Well, I think it's really easy to call somebody a Nazi or call somebody a white supremacist, because those words, they've really just lost their meaning, right? Because people have used them so much and they throw them around like common adjectives to the point where people don't really think before they accuse somebody or defame someone by using those words, which were once, really vile accusations. Now people just think nothing of it. And so I also think that it's clearly their agenda, because any of those people could see that, half the people on those lists are either friends with Jews, they're either working for Jewish people, they're married to Jews, they have Jewish friends. And yeah, they are correct in that there are some Jew haters on the list. I'm not denying that. But to just accuse everybody on the list of being a white supremacist or a Nazi without really doing any research and, just to put such a defamatory label on them is shocking to me. And I know a lot of these people, and I'm friends with some of them. Others, not so much. But I felt it was my duty as a Jew and a member of the New Right to question the ADL and criticize them for their defamatory list that they publish. It's funny because they claim to fight defamation, but then by putting out a hit list, a target list, which is like the same exact thing Hitler did, he created lists of undesirables and released it to the public so that the public could target those undesirables. They're defaming people. So tell me how the ADL is supposed to be committing itself to fighting defamation and anti-Semitism when they themselves are actually increasing defamation and creating anti-Semitism by creating more resentment towards Jews since, this false list came from a Jewish organization. I know a lot of people may not agree with me, but I believe that anti-Semitism is largely fueled and promoted by the Jewish people themselves. I think that you have left-leaning Jews who have chosen to align themselves with liberal causes, anti-Israel causes, Islam, pro-Muslim immigration, and those are things that conservatives are generally against. And so by doing that and by basically advocating for and promoting the destruction of the West, of Western values, of democracy through these toxic policies and viewpoints, obviously people are going to have resentment towards Jewish people.
Yeah, and of course, on the larger scale, I look at anti-Semitism as a historic demonic plague and the world's longest hatred and deepest hatred and most irrational hatred. So it's going to be here regardless of Jewish behavior. However, I do agree with you that when you have Jewish people driving something like the ACLU in so many ways and so many extreme left-wing causes that come against religious liberties and conservative values, or someone like George Soros underwriting so much of what many Americans differ with and are displeased with, and he himself a Hungarian Jew. Yeah, it does not help our cause. And then, of course, when you start coming up with the list, yeah, some people are anti-Semites, some people are rightly identified as Nazi sympathizers. But I was put on a list years ago by the SPLC, along with David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, and others, former head of the Black Panthers and things like that. I was put on a list because as a Messianic Jew, conservative evangelical, I differed with gay activism, so that got me on their hate list. So it's the same with the ADL. And I guess the greater concern is that YouTube is now working with the ADL to weed out radical videos and things. Yeah, fine. If you've got stuff that's calling for murder and against any group and is literally inciting angry, destructive hatred, let it be isolated. But when I find out the ADL is working with YouTube on censorship issues, that concerns me. We've only got about a minute, but what's your take on that?
I think it's extremely alarming. If you look at the people who are on the list, some of those people would be described as like the top content producing conservatives in the movement right now. You have like Mike Cernovich was on the list. You have, I'm trying to think, like Gavin McInnes. These are people who have very popular YouTube videos, very popular websites and Twitter accounts, and clearly they've already been wrongfully accused of being anti-Semites and Nazis. So I just see that, this is a disaster waiting to happen when you have a group that wants to label everyone who disagrees with you, a Nazi or a white supremacist. Because, I doubt they're going to also be like calling out these Islamic videos that call for expansion of Sharia and ISIS and Islamic indoctrination. So it's going to be funny because I'm sure that we'll still find those terrorist videos out there. But no, let's censor the conservative first.
Yeah, and that's often where it comes down. And friends, we're not being paranoid. These are things we're living out. This is something Laura's living out. You may agree with her politics, her activism, or not, but what we do agree is we have the right to have this freedom of expression. And if we come against those who are inciting violence and hatred and anger, that means that we're the opposite of that. Hey, Laura, I hope you don't mind if I ask my listeners just to pray for you by name, that God's blessing would be yours, because I know it can be a little lonely there. So if you don't mind, we're going to be praying for you in days to come, all right?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, Laura.